Hello, everybody. My name is Chef Ava Marie. Welcome to the Chef Ava Marie Happy Hour podcast. I am your host for today, and today we have a very special guest on the hour. He is a former chef of Farming Hope and a poet of Hella Mexican. You have to read his poet. It is fantastic. And I think he's going to cook something for us today. Please welcome Chef Kevin, my neighbor, at the stage. Hello, Kevin. How you doing, Kevin?
Hello. I'm doing all right. How are you doing?
Doing good. What got you started in your culinary journey, first of all? Are you cooking today?
Yeah, I will be cooking. I gotta grab a couple of ingredients to get all set up. But I'm happy to start answering your question and talk a little bit about my own culinary journey. I started cooking more professionally as an adult. I think I got my first
Oh,
right after I graduated from college when I was 21 years old. I worked in a kitchen.
wow.
Yeah, I worked in a big catering kitchen that did a lot of volume, and I was in charge of cooking salads, making hummus, making chicken breast. I was in charge of a thing called I think it was called the Healthy Station. So all the food.
Where was that a Farming Hope, or where was that at?
No, that was before, right? That was before Farming Hope. It's called Schwab Executive Catering Services. It's one of the
Oh,
catering services that's on Stanford's campus.
that was a Palo Alto. That's good to know.
Yeah. They're a really incredible catering business that does work mostly for the Stanford School of Business, but a bunch of other things around that area. Um, yeah, and that was my first cooking job. So even from like the first time that I started really cooking professionally, I've been making a lot of healthier things, a lot of
Wow,
things.
that's good. Bringing the concept. So, what made you want to start doing plant-based food, or what made you want to do that as a chef?
Yeah. Um, Well, I think it has to do with kind of the introduction to food, at least like as an adult, like what got me interested in pursuing food. I went to Stanford for my undergraduate. I'm from South San Francisco,
Me too.
same as you, Ava. Yeah.
Homies.
And so growing up, I was a big math and science nerd, and growing up in South City, you grow up next to all these biotech businesses like
Yeah.
Genentech, Amgen. So when I was younger, I thought I wanted to be like a bioengineer or a pharmaceutical engineer, somebody that was studying medicine specifically to help people that have incurable diseases or people that have terminal illnesses,
Yeah.
at least like control their symptoms. And I don't know, I think from a very young age, I've always wanted to help people. My parents are both immigrants from Mexico. They
Yeah.
moved here in the 80s, and I think maybe not so much in like what they said to me, but just in the way that they live.
Wow.
I think they've always shown me, like, if you can help out your neighbors, like help out your neighbors,
Yes.
help
Me
people.
too.
Yeah,
Always support your neighbors, honey, because I always do the same with my neighbors. 'Cause that's what we
exactly.
happen to be neighbors to this day. That's why
Yeah,
we connected during COVID.
yeah. So precisely, I think yeah. Definitely since a young age, I think I've wanted. I don't know. I've wanted to help people or just work in communities with people. I think that's where I feel the most comfortable. Um,
But I've been cooking longer than you because I've started at age 13,
oh,
cooking for
amazing.
friends and family, and then started professionally at 21. I was trained at El Camino High School Culinary Arts, and yeah,
Oh,
and then was
oh
an
wow. I
ROP
didn't know.
special ed hotel hospitality. So we have something in common, kid. So
Yeah, El Camino High School. I've heard. I recently was at a fundraiser event where I was talking to some of the faculty there who mentioned that El Camino got a really nice new kitchen apparently for their culinary arts education and their home economics classes.
Wow, that's fantastic. We had a teacher named Mr. Coddington. He was one of my best teachers I ever had in my career.
That's awesome. Have you been back to El Camino, Ava?
I've been there for my nephew's game. I just went to his game recently to watch my nephew played, and they lost.
Oh no. Well, what does your nephew play?
uh, Varsity football.
Oh, cool.
So I watch him play his football. He's been a scholar. Yeah.
That's really awesome. Here, I'm just gonna grab my knife, and I should have almost everything that I need for this recipe, so I can continue going from there.
Viewers at home, you're getting this is our first ever culinary demonstration by my neighbor chef Kevin. So what are you cooking for us today?
Yeah, I'm gonna be making a really really simple, very simple recipe. I'm so nowadays I work as a nutrition educator,
Mm-hmm.
and as you mentioned, I write poetry. I wish poetry there was more money in poetry, but unfortunately, it's kind of
It's
a
a
difficult thing.
story, yeah.
It's a difficult thing to really make a living off of. So I do have a kind of more of a day job, and I still work in food.
Oh, well, tell us about your bartender job. How did that go?
uh, That's going all right. Honestly, I think the bartending job is bartending is just something I've always been curious to try out. I think especially as a lot of people that work in the back of house know, there's a big separation between back of house and front of house.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately sometimes that also comes with a pay discrepancy. So oftentimes front of house folks are making a little bit extra because of tips, whereas back of house folks
Yeah,
are maybe making a little bit above minimum wage, but not a
yeah,
whole lot more. So
yeah.
definitely a reason why I've wanted to do it from that side. And I don't know, I like to go out with my friends and have a nice drink every now and then. I think mixology and drink and food is interesting. So I just started working as a bar back, and to be honest, the schedule has been really difficult. I've been working Fridays and Saturdays from 8 p.m. to 3 a.m.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I've been getting home like close to 4 a.m. and then like not being able to go to bed until like 5 a.m. and it kind of throws off the rest of my week. So I think at the very least right now, I'm gonna probably have to take a little pause from that just to be able to get my schedule back in order. But
I know.
yeah, I think I would like to continue to do some sort of work with a bar program in the future. We'll see what happens. But I've been enjoying my experience. I think really at the end of the day,
Good.
it's just the scheduling that makes it really hard.
I know with the new schedule with your manager, you'll get you.
Yeah. Let's see on my tongue.
And Oakland's a commute, so we're very happy for you that you told us about your new position. So that's the one to know. But
Well,
let's get cooking.
yeah. Um, yeah. So, like I was mentioning,
Okay.
I work as a nutrition educator.
Yes.
So I teach basically I teach hands-on like cooking demonstrations to a few different communities around
Oh
the
yeah.
Bay Area. Right now I teach mostly in the Mission in San Francisco at Mission Neighborhood Centers, their main campus, and at Presita Park Community Center.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
I teach to kind of like a variety of young ones and older folks, and it's been a really really cool
Uh
work. I really love teaching. I think my favorite part of teaching is being able to do exactly what I'm about to do, which is demonstrate a recipe, talk a little bit about why it works, how it works, the nutritional value,
yeah.
and then being able to let everybody sample the food. Because at the end of the day, I think you can show people a bunch of recipes, or you can give people the most creative recipes that'll be
Oh
super.
yeah.
But if they don't think it's good, or if they don't try it and think it's delicious, I don't think that they're going to actually cook it or actually like.
Yeah. You got to have a little flavor and nutrition value. I agree.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is usually when I'm cooking. This is like the first recipe that I will make for kind of like a new crowd that I'm working with. And I used to be able to have like a little widescreen view, but
And it's
I'm gonna
it's the
angle
way
my.
to eat your veggies. They have to. So what kind of vegetable is this?
Yes. So this is just a big head of organic green cabbage.
Oh wow! So you get it at any farmer's market?
Yeah, get it at any farmer's market, any grocery store. It doesn't have to be organic. I talk a lot about what the difference between organic and conventional produce is in my classes, and really at the end of the day, nutritionally there isn't a huge difference. I think the biggest difference comes in the way that we're treating our soil and the way that we're treating
Yeah.
people that work in farming. So the people that are farmers, or the people that are just harvesting, which oftentimes are immigrant or migrant workers. So, yeah, I think organic foods can be really good, but I think that they also kind of give this like false exterior of they're completely better, or they're better for your
Oh
health.
yeah.
It's not always true. So, it's also more expensive. So I don't think we should ever make people feel ashamed for not being able to
Oh
buy the
yeah.
more expensive options. So I'm using organic just because today I decided to get one, but I've made this recipe more with just regular old cabbage.
Yeah.
So it doesn't always have to be organic. So this is a braised cabbage dish.
Ooh.
So we're going to be taking the cabbage, we're going to be cutting it up into basically just slices, like as if you would for a slaw.
Yeah.
And we're going to be cooking it in some oil, just in a big saute pan. So before I start cutting the cabbage, I'm actually going to get cooking on this. I'm just going to give my pan a quick rinse because I used this in my last cooking demo and don't think I had a kitchen to wash
What
it.
was the inspiration behind this braised cabbage?
1 second, Dana.
Okay, you got it, chef.
Did you ask what the inspiration was?
What was the inspiration behind the cabbage recipe?
Yeah. I think I've since I started cooking a lot more vegetables, I've really become a fan of cabbage. Because it's really hearty, and
Mm-hmm.
it can last in the refrigerator for a really long time. So
Ah.
I don't know. It's just I think cabbage is just one of those vegetables that doesn't get a lot of love, or is used in a lot of the same old recipes over and over again. So it's just something I've been cooking. It's really simple. I think the inspiration for me really is just like very few. It's so few ingredients, and it's really delicious. So anybody can make it.
Yeah.
And this was the first time I made this. I believe I made this for my family in Mexico, and I made it as a vegan taco. Which in Mexico, at least today, um, vegan tacos aren't a huge thing because of how the food system has changed
Yeah.
in Mexico and in America. So I don't know, taking something like a taco, which typically we have a lot of meat, like carne asada or pollo or pastor.
Oh yeah.
It felt a little sacrilegious, or it felt like I was going to get some criticism. But actually, I made this for the first time. I think it was we were having a little gathering, a little post birthday gathering for my abuelita, and I made a bunch of the cabbage
Aw.
to make into tacos, and people really liked it. So I think I've just kind of stuck with it since then, just because I know that people enjoy it, and I really love it too. So the inspiration was kind of, yeah, just making something delicious, wanting to make a vegan taco, something that was really simple. So when I eat this as a taco, I typically will eat it with tortilla with some refried beans, and then some of the cabbage, and then maybe a little bit of cotija cheese, and some
Oh.
salsa, and it makes for a really delicious taco. Um, yeah, and I think one of the big things on like my culinary journey too has been trying to unlearn some of the stuff that I thought I knew about Mexican food. So just as I was mentioning with tacos, and with all these very meat heavy dishes.
Yeah, like the carne asada, make it more healthier. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that and there's this book I would say the one of the biggest inspirations for how I cook nowadays is from this book. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called Decolonize Your Diet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's by Luz Calvo and Catriona Esquivel. They're both professors and academics here in the Bay Area. And one of them, unfortunately, was diagnosed with breast cancer, and
Aw.
them being married and a couple and academics that they are, they started looking into literature. They started looking, or sorry, into the research and looking like what's the best lifestyle decisions that they can make to help their chances of fighting off breast cancer. And one thing they
Yeah.
found was plant-based diets. There's a lot of research that shows that plant-based diets, at the very least, pose less harm than ones that are focused on red meats or other types of
Yeah.
other animal fats. So that was a really big kind of turning point for me. Reading,
Yeah. To prevent cancer. I'm surprised too.
yeah,
'Cause I
and
love vegan food, so
yeah, and a big part of it too is if you go back far enough in the traditions of Mexican cooking, there was a time where meat was very sparse. The meat being as common as it is today is only
yeah.
can only be tracked to since from like the mid 1900s. I believe it was the 1950s or 60s when we had the so-called Green Revolution or Green Industrial
Yeah.
Revolution, which was basically all the modern ways of agriculture and the modern ways that we cook, that we raise our food. That involves concentrated animal feeding operations, also known
Yeah.
as COs, those really really big warehouses where they grow a lot of chickens or a lot of cows. So all of that is new. All of that isn't historical. It isn't Mexican. It isn't part of a traditional culture, a way of living. So
Wow.
when you look back far enough, you start to see like, oh, meat was never the center of the table, at least for most cultures.
Wow.
It was always a lot of vegetables, a lot of plants, a lot of beans, um, cheeses, potatoes, basically everything else, and a little bit of meat on the side, or a little bit of meat to do the flavoring. So
Yeah.
I try to kind of style my cooking around those same principles. And so when I'm cooking, I'm saying that I'm kind of reimagining my food with my abuelita's knowledge, and her wisdom, which comes from a long lineage of
Yeah.
people surviving off of the land,
Yeah. That's
with
sweet.
very minimal resources and a lot of plants.
That's good. My friend Miyoko Skinner, who I met a few years ago at the South San Francisco Library, she has a new documentary out on Netflix. You have to watch.
Ooh, what's it called?
Um, it's good. I don't remember the name of it, but she said something on Instagram. You have to look it up, and she says it's coming in the new year, and she wants everyone to watch it. It's
Awesome.
about plant-based eating. It's supposed to be some much watch event.
Beautiful. Good to know. Thank you for letting me know. So, right now we're getting started with this recipe. So I've just got about a tablespoon and a half of cooking oil in our pan here over a medium heat. I have an induction stove just to make it a little bit easier for this demo. And right now I'm just going to put in a whole clove of garlic and one chile de árbol or any other similar dried chili without the
Ooh.
seeds, just because the seeds are where all the spice is. So if you want
Yeah,
extra spice, you can include it. But I'm
that's
basically just going
special.
to be I'm basically just going to be using this oil to release all those aromatics, to infuse the oil with all of that flavor. I'm just going to be watching that for the next couple of minutes while we cut
Okay.
the cabbage. So the cabbage, like I mentioned, is super simple. I'm going to cut off a little bit of the butt here, and I'm just going to cut this in half.
Okay. Take your time, Kevin. Okay. I already know.
So basically every part of this cabbage is edible, but there is a little bit of this root here,
Yeah.
that you would have to do some extra pickling for just to make it really edible. So for this recipe, I'm just going to cut that little bit out, and toss it into our compost. We do try to minimize waste, but there's certain things that it's okay. We have compost bins. We don't have to
Oh
eat
yeah.
a single piece. And now I'm just going to be taking this, and starting to cut it almost as if I was like julienning an onion, just doing long shreds.
I have one next to my kitchen. In my kitchen. Yeah.
Oh, a compost bin?
Yeah, it's in my kitchen. Yeah.
Perfect. So sometimes for a coleslaw, you'll want to do this really, really thin. This is going to be cooked, so it doesn't have to be super thin. I tell people this is a good way to start practicing your knife skills to see how accurately you can do really thin slices, how accurately you can do really big slices. One thing I'm doing is I'm using the pinch grip with my knife. I'm
Oh
using the
yeah.
claw with my offhand. I'm cutting on a flat surface. When I cut that cabbage, I cut it right in half to give us this flat surface, so it rests on our cutting board nicely and doesn't roll around. But it's okay if some pieces are thicker and some pieces are thinner. It's all going to get cooked up, and I think when you have a thicker pieces, it just ends up being a little bit crunchier, and that variety can be really nice in this dish.
Yeah. See that, guys? He's cutting it into pieces so it could braise evenly into bits. And you see that chilies? It looks really good. So
Yeah,
it's good.
it's getting a little smoky.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah,
you guys have to try this at home, for my
yeah,
viewers at home.
it's really simple. So I guess I should have mentioned in the very beginning, all the ingredients that we're using are just 1 clove of garlic, 1 dried chili, 1 head of cabbage. We can use half of the cabbage and then use the other half for another thing. We're gonna use an orange, about half of it,
Ooh.
just the juice, and then just salt and pepper.
S&P. Yeah.
So not too much, not too many ingredients. Um, I'm gonna cut a little bit more of this cabbage. My saute pan is a little bit on the smaller side. I think we'll be able to fit just a little bit more of the half of the cabbage into it. Don't want to overcrowd the pan, though.
No.
As we'll see, this with this cabbage, it shrinks a lot as it's cooked, so it'll
Oh yeah.
be a lot smaller.
So what kind of things you have in the works for poetry?
Yeah, I mean, poetry is one of those things. It kind of moves at its own pace. So I've been kind of trying to allow myself time to just work on whatever makes sense. But most recently, right now, it's December 12th, 2023, and I've been trying to really write a lot into specifically liberation movements. So there's a lot of stuff that's happening worldwide right now.
Yeah.
What's happening with the genocide of Israel on Palestine right now. So right
Yes.
now, I'm really trying to explore how to use my writing as a tool for liberation, as a tool to be in community with folks.
Yeah.
So that's personally just what I'm working on right now. And
for the Middle East, yeah.
Yeah, I do have my first book, my first chapbook, Hella Mexican, is out right now. You can buy it online. And I have another book of poetry that's kind of a follow-up on that one. That's currently in the kind of editing process. I'm still trying to find a home for it to get published. But so I have a kind of like another book, and then just more personal stuff to be in community with folks.
Oh, good.
Poetry.
We'll make sure to link those books, merch on our YouTube page, and I'll pick up. We'll also put the recipe as well for people at home.
Yeah, I have this recipe written up because this is one that I've taught quite a bit before.
So we'll post that on our page. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. The chili and the garlic have gotten nice and brown, so I'm just taking them out of the pan now. They've done their job. They've infused our oil with the flavors. And now I'm just going to rearrange a little bit so that you can get a better view of the pan. And I'm going to drop in all of the cabbage. It's going to be a little loud. It's going to sizzle.
Look at that. What do you do if cooks overcrowd the pan?
What was that?
If they overcrowd the pan, could they? Is it okay if they overcrowd the pan?
So, whew, the chili's getting to me.
It's smoky, yeah.
Yeah, I have to open up a little window.
Yeah.
So with certain things like this cabbage, it's okay to overcrowd a little bit. Otherwise, you just want to take this away and do it in 2 batches.
Even
Um,
layer. Yeah.
yeah, and so the only reason I'm overcrowding this so much is because I've made this recipe a lot before, and I
Uh-huh.
know that this is gonna shrink down a lot. So
Okay.
the only thing, actually, now the only thing that we're gonna do is add a little bit of salt. I always like to use kosher salt if I can. I always use my hand to put it in. It just feels the most natural. And so salt is important right now
Oh
because
yeah.
the salt, as you probably know, with vegetables especially, will draw some of the moisture out of the
Oh yeah.
cabbage to help shrink it down. And then I'm going to add some of my black pepper. Now I'm just going to let it sit. I'm going to let it cook. If you want to speed up this process a little bit, we can put a lid on this. But even just leaving it like this will be totally fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll put a lid on it just for a couple of minutes just to help. I think this guy will fit. There we go. All right. And now we have a little bit of time, so we can talk a little bit more, really quickly. So yeah, this is gonna cook. I'm not gonna disturb it or move it at all
No.
for at least 3 or 4 minutes because I want
Yeah.
a really nice sear on the cabbage that are at the bottom. And as you probably know, Chef Ava, searing is how you get a lot of flavor on foods. When you start to get caramelization and the Maillard reaction, that browning has a lot of flavor. So I'm not touching it. I'm just letting it sear. If I
Yeah.
start to mess with it too much, it won't sear properly. It'll lose a lot. A lot of the moisture will come off, and it'll start to steam instead. But right now, I want it to sear before we start to braise it.
Okay.
So we're gonna let it cook. We're gonna mix it up, and then a little bit later, I'm gonna be adding in the juice, about half of this orange, and letting it cook down with all that liquid.
Yeah.
But we're chilling right now for a little bit.
Yeah. So I'm gonna do a game of the top five. This is what we do with every other guest.
Uh-huh.
So you want to play a game with me? The top
Let's play.
five pop questions.
Let's play.
So let's play. So, what are your favorite podcasts to listen to?
Ooh.
I know you like mine, but you gotta pick another one.
Yeah, I listened to a few. So I would say my favorite food podcast is called Cooking Issues.
Oh,
You listen to Cooking Issues, Chef Ava?
I have to look it up.
Okay, yeah, that podcast is with Dave Arnold, who was the head, I believe, of research, like culinary research at the ICA in New York, a
Oh,
long time ago, and he also helped out with the Momofuku restaurants and their bars in New
yeah.
York. So he's a pretty big name. He has this book called Liquid Intelligence, and it's kind of become one of those like Bibles for anybody that wants to make bar drinks. So he's a
Good.
really knowledgeable dude. He's really quirky and really funny, and he always has different guests on his podcast. And just basically the theme of the show, as is hinted in the name of the show, is people just call in or email questions that they have about food or about their own cooking issues, and then they try to solve them. So it's a cool one. It's definitely long. But if you can find one that has anything that you're interested in, I would definitely recommend that one. Then I listen to, I'm from the Bay Area. I grew up as a Warriors fan. I feel like ever since I was little, I always loved basketball. So there's a basketball podcast I listen to. It's called the Basketball Illuminati. They call it that because basically they kind of come up with these like conspiracy theories or talk about things in basketball that they think are kind of like Illuminati conspiracies, but it's also really entertaining and they're really fun. And then one other podcast that I listen to regularly is called Hella Black. Hella
What?
Black. It's produced out of Oakland, And they also have a series called Tales of the Town, but the main production is Hella Black, and it's a couple of people that work in different community programs in the East Bay, and they just talk about oftentimes what's happening just in the Bay Area or big international issues, and how it relates to what's happening in the Bay Area. That one's definitely more of a political education podcast.
Yeah.
I would say
Favorite celebrity?
favorite celebrity. Honestly, Ava, I wish I'm really bad with celebrity names. Like I
Oh,
have
I know.
faces. Um, I favorite celebrity.
Just pick one, okay? There's a
Yeah.
lot of Latin celebrities out there.
Um, I would have to go with.
Just pick a one, okay?
Yeah, I would have to go with a chef, somebody that worked in the food industry, Anthony Bourdain, R.I.P.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. I think of all the celebrities that I've like grown up seeing and watching, he's definitely been the favorite.
Oh, he's a good one. And then favorite movie to watch.
Ah, I grew up watching the movie that I watched the most is Napoleon Dynamite. I don't know if you ever watched it.
No.
It came out
Who
like
was?
either the early or the mid 2000s, maybe like 2007 or something.
Who were the stars of that movie?
John, what's his name? John Hader. John Hader, and I don't think anybody else in that movie was like very well known. It was kind of like an independent, like small film. But
Oh,
yeah, Napoleon Dynamite's kind of like one of my cult comedy favorites.
and then favorite thing to do in the Bay Area,
Hmm.
like restaurants in the Bay Area. That's what I meant.
Ah. I mean, you said favorite thing to do in the Bay Area, and immediately I was like, eat. So,
Yeah,
well,
that's a fourth topic. Yeah.
yeah. Favorite restaurants. I mean, there's a lot of really, really amazing food in the Bay. All you know what? I'm gonna keep it local for right now for places that are near South City. I really love Las Hijas del Gallo Panaderia. It's a panaderia on Linden Street off of Grand in like
Oh
downtown
yeah.
South City. That place makes some of the best pan dulce, if not I think the best pan dulce in the Bay Area. Um, and they're very very local, very community oriented. I love that place. And then I grew up eating Little Luca sandwiches, Dutch Crunch. My fresh roasted turkey on Dutch Crunch is my go-to. So
Oh
I
yeah.
really love Little Luca and the stuff that they do there. When I'm in San Francisco, right now, I always love to eat pupusas at Panchitas on 16th Street,
Oh
and
wow.
I really love. There's a pizza spot in the Tenderloin called Out of Sight. I love pizza. It's like one of my favorite foods. One could say I'm a little obsessed with pizza. Um,
Wow.
and Out of Sight is definitely one of my favorite pizza spots in San Francisco.
Wow. And then favorite music to listen to.
I listen to a lot of rap. I listen to a lot of rap and R and B.
Rap.
Yeah, I grew up with two older siblings. I was born in the '90s. My siblings were born in the '80s, so
Me
I grew up,
too.
I grew up listening to a lot of like
I'm a pop
90s.
girl. You know.
But I really love rap, and I feel like there's a lot of similarities between poetry and rap. There's a lot of people
Ah.
trying to talk about current issues. You could talk about like also a famous Bay Area rapper. At least he spent some time here and had a connection to the Bay Area. Was Tupac.
E40.
Oh, E40. Yeah, E40 is a huge one. But Tupac actually wrote poetry. I have one of his books of poetry. So I've always really loved the connection between poetry and the written word and rap. So I listen to a lot of rap and R&B.
I'm trying to get E40 on the podcast. That's where my goal is to get him on. So.
Yeah, he does a lot of stuff in food too. He has like a ice cream. He has a
He has
sausage.
a business, man. He has a cookbook out. So
Yeah, I hope you do get him on one of your podcasts soon.
I will. And, I just pitched to Richard Blaze to get him on Celebrity Next Level Chef. So.
Awesome. So that was about 5-ish minutes. as you can see, even I haven't touched anything. It's already shrank down a
Yeah.
little bit. And now I'm just going to start to give it finally its first little mix. All that brown, all that
Yeah.
browning, that little bit of charring, that's what I want. That's all flavor.
Yes.
So now I'm just going to mix it all up. It's honestly already cooked quite a ways down. With this recipe, there isn't necessarily like a finished point. Like you could finish here and it'll just be a little bit crunchier. If you want it to be really cooked down, and more wilted, then obviously you can cook it for longer. But this is looking good. I think I'm going to add my half of an orange,
Yeah.
and just kind of let it cook, continue to cook in those juices. I should note I did turn down the heat a little bit as the lid was on.
For viewers from the Philippines at home, could they also use calamansi as an option?
Yeah, you could use calamansi, you could use lime, you could use lemon. I think any fresh citrus adds a really, really nice complexity,
Yeah.
a really nice acidity. I've even made this with just apple cider vinegar or
Ooh.
rice vinegar to add some of that acidity. But I do really like, even if I'm going to use that, I like to even add a little bit of citrus juice if I can, just because it adds
Oh
just
yeah,
a
that's
nice
it.
flavor. Yeah, a nice fresh flavor. This orange is feeling a little dry, so I think I'm going to add the whole orange. Typically, I'll just add half of an orange, but I think I'm going to go ahead and add the rest of this guy. And if you do want to add lemon, lime, or calamansi, I would recommend maybe adding either a little bit of agave or a little bit of honey, just to try to balance some of that acidity with
Yeah.
sweetness. The reason I love orange is because it has a little bit of acidity and sweetness, so I think that
Yeah.
comes out really, really good in the recipe.
So for viewers at home, if you want to add calamansi or lemon, add a little bit of honey or agave to the cabbage with chilies, and that will make a huge difference. Okay.
Yes. All right. I'm just gonna mix that up, make sure all of that orange juice really coats all of this. Kind of get a little better look of it.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
It's like smell-o-vision.
All right, this is almost done. Honestly, you could turn it off. Like I mentioned earlier, you could turn this off and call it done here. I am going to do what I tell people in my cooking classes. One of the most important things to do before you serve food to anybody is to try it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's something people maybe
Oh yeah.
forget or maybe don't realize is a really important part of cooking. But you have to try everything that you're making.
Oh
Otherwise,
yeah. Taste tests.
yeah. Otherwise, how do you know? How do you know if people aren't going to enjoy it? So I'm just going to grab a few pieces here, let it cool down a little bit. Mm.
Oh, so good.
Yeah, I'm going to turn it off. It's cooked. It's cooked perfectly for my liking. You know, it's crazy. I took all the seeds out of that chile de árbol, and all we did was fry the oil in it, and it still packs some heat. I can feel it.
Yeah.
I'm getting warmed up. It's not too spicy. I feel like from a 1 to 10 scale at most, this is like a 3 or a 4. But if you
This
are
is next level.
yeah, if you really are if you wanna make this a little bit less spicy, you can definitely use a different type of chile, or you can not use the chile at all. But for me, this is perfect.
Thank
So
you.
yeah, the amount of salt, I think the salt tastes right. Typically at this point, I would either add a little bit more salt, or maybe add a little bit more orange juice, or maybe add a little bit more pepper. But I think the seasoning feels right, and a little bit more black pepper. And yeah, like I mentioned, I love to eat this as a vegan or a vegetarian taco with just tortilla and some refried beans, and then a little bit of cotija cheese if you want. I also think this is a really great side with any protein entree, whether it's like a
Yeah.
baked salmon or grilled chicken or even baked or fried tofu, anything like that. I think it makes a really really good addition. And one version of this that I like to make, especially for the holidays, like around Thanksgiving and Christmas time, is basically to cut up a bunch of bacon bits and fry them until they're crispy, and then you maybe use a little bit of that bacon fat to cook the cabbage.
Wow.
And then once I'm going to serve this, to put the bacon bits on top. So you get a little bit of bacon, kind of how I was mentioning earlier. You get a little bit of the flavor from the meat product, but it's still a plant-based dish.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that was the braised cabbage dish. It's done.
Yeah, so please enjoy with your sister. She's probably going to be hungry for this. You were a great guest on the show. Can you please come back and do another demo when you have your book out?
Yeah, of course.
And I'll bring you some goodies when I see you around the neighborhood. Okay?
Okay, sounds good.
I know where you live, by Longford and Suddens. I know where you are.
Yeah.
So good to see you.
Good to see you too, Chef Ava.
You're welcome. You take care now.
Okay, you take care too.
Thanks for joining.
Of course. Bye-bye.
Bye. There goes Kevin. Okay, here he goes. It was the chef. Are you okay? So anyway, so that was Kevin. That was an excellent cooking demonstration. See that? So that was the last show from this for 2024 free. So thank you for joining us. So we are happy New Year, you guys. As we say, saucy to perfection. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. And see you in 2024. And I log off and see you in next year. Bye bye.